Well and truly.
I quite often use "Oh dear, how sad, never mind."
Oh dear, how sad, never mind. That sounded more West Country than Welsh, I apologise.
Apparently Riverside is up.
Yep.
Oh dear.
You rubbing your hands to keep them warm?
No, just having a
My
stretch, that's all.
office is cold.
I've moved my room heater back a bit, so hopefully people won't be complaining too much. But yeah,
You're a fan.
I have a fan. Yes, I've got
Cool.
my,
That's going to hurt, isn't it?
why's that?
Electricity on a fan heater.
Well, what you reckon? I suppose I could I don't know how much it draws, but it's 2 kilowatts, so I do know how much it draws.
Oh,
But,
quite a
2
lot.
kilowatts, ow.
I think that's right. Maybe it's 1.6.
Oh, spanko. At least you're not paying 600-700 quid a month on electricity.
No, not quite that much. No,
I was
Well,
paying 1,100-1,200 before I got the rate changed.
I could get a more
For the
efficient.
office?
Yeah,
I'll say, if that's your home.
because business
We need to have
electricity
worse.
rates are not capped like domestic are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 1.6 kilowatts, which is not unusual for a room heater.
I got a radiator thing. I know I'm not giving it the best of
Well, how many watts is that? the
800, I think. tops.
800 watts. I'm surprised that does a lot. Like the Beldray one's 2 kilowatts.
Yeah, it warms itself, it's that.
Well, I guess that's what it's for.
This is what they come to the PC Pro for, radiator chat.
Well, I trust Monica. I've been looking through the filter on the Guardian, and these are all 2 kilowatts. So.
30 seconds
Yep.
ish.
Yeah, that's max draw, though.
Yeah, but why would you not use it on max if you're freezing cold? Yeah, no, I think 1.6 kilowatts is perfectly normal for an electric room heater, so you can all shut up.
Ooh.
See, if you bothered insulating the rest of those walls, you wouldn't need so much heat, would you?
Well, yeah, it's audio insulation, not thermal. 1 p.m.
Is it really? Oh my
Yeah.
god.
What episode number is it?
Don't know. I never read it out. Hello and welcome to the PC Pro podcast. It is Thursday the 19th of February and I'm Barry Collins, news and features editor of PC Pro. Oh, there's a new PC Pro out this week. Everybody should go and buy the new PC Pro because I've forgotten to tell you what's in it this week. So you're just going to have to trust me that it's very good. With me today, I've got Nick Rawlinson.
Hello.
I've got Darren Graham-Smith.
Hello.
And I've got John Honeyball.
Afternoon.
And we're starting with you, Darren, and things are running out.
Yeah, so we've been talking quite a lot about how RAM has been, the price of RAM has rocketed because demand has rocketed, mostly because of your lovely Claudes and your ChatGPTs and your Copilots and all of that, which has had a knock-on effect on the availability, manufacturing of consumer RAM. Well, I mean, just to mention, this isn't just about, as we've seen in the magazine, for example, like gaming PCs or high-end workstations, which have been coming in at £2,000. Suddenly the prices have gone up to £3,000 for the exact same specification, just because the memory is so much more in demand. But that's not it's kind of trickled down now, not only to increase prices, but actual overall availability issues. The Steam Deck, the little handheld console that looks like a Switch but runs, I think it's a Linux-based OS that plays all the millions of games on Steam. A notice has appeared on the Valve website saying if you want to order a Steam Deck for yourself, be aware that the console, quote, may be out of stock intermittently due to memory and storage shortages. So it's actually kind of translating now to not just you'll have to pay more, but you might not be able to get what you want at all. And you will notice that they mention memory and storage shortages because, yes, the squeeze on storage is also starting to bite. WD, Western Digital, as they previously were, had their Q2 earnings call this week, and their CEO Irving Tan revealed that they are, and I quote, pretty much sold out for 2026. Demand for storage, of course, AI demands vast quantities of data, has also gone through the roof. So if you are hoping to expand your computer with, an old mechanical hard disk, I guess those are less in demand because they're not very AI friendly. But certainly, if you wanted a lovely, fast or flash NVMe SSD, act quickly, or you may find that they go the same way as those, mythical 32 gigabyte RAM packs, which were, exchanging hands for the cost of a Freddo this time last year, and now they cost as much as a Freddo.
But wasn't Western Digital talking about hard disks specifically, wasn't it? Not just SSDs.
You know what? That is a very valid point. I do not know because I have been just looking at the general notes of what he said, and he said we are, quote, sold out for 2026. I haven't been into the breakdown because reading financials it makes my head spin. I mean, I do know that SSD is very much in demand because you need the speed, but yes, WD is a mechanical drive brand. So you've caught me on the hop there, Barry. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it is talking about, and I guess that's partly as a result of SSD demand, which we knew already short as it was, now must be driving demand for the hard disk market as well, and that's obviously having a knock-on effect for Western Digital. I was speaking earlier today for a forthcoming PC Pro feature to a company called Future Source Consulting, who are a company that advise schools, amongst other things, on buying hardware, and they were telling me that schools buying laptops this year are seeing prices going up by about £200 and schools generally aren't buying top of the range kit. They're buying low to medium range kit to send out to kids. They've seen prices go up by £200. That's obviously having a knock-on effect on schools' hardware budgets, because schools aren't flush with cash and can't just suddenly add another 20 or 30% to their hardware budget. And they were telling me that those prices are changing every 15 days at the moment, whereas previously you would sign a contract to get them in and they'd arrive a few months later. Now the prices are going up every 15 days, and they're having to pay the price on delivery, not when they at the point of order, because supplies are so tight. And this is a real problem for schools because they did a massive hardware refresh around the COVID period when they had to suddenly send out a load of computers to kids working from home. All of those computers now, 5 years on, are coming to end of life, if they haven't end of life already. Throw into the mix that a lot of schools are still running Windows 10 hardware and are struggling to replace that. And of course, Microsoft is turning the squeeze on the extra support cache if you want the extra support, and suddenly school hardware budgets are looking pretty grim. I think this is going to become the massive issue of this year for our industry. What do you say, John?
Oh yeah, without question. Prices are... We've not been used to this sort of volatility, and certainly not spot market almost in pricing for a very long time, I would suggest. And people, as you say, want to plan ahead. They want to be able to allocate money and then spend it when they need to, and work on the basis of pricing. I mean, I'm glad I noticed on our lovely Discord channel, James London saying I was looking to build a NAS a few weeks ago, not anymore. And I can understand his point of view. I added about 150, 200 terabytes of storage onto the network here a month or two back, and I'm really glad I did it then rather than now, because it would have cost a lot more money for 14 to 20 terabyte hard disks. I've just ordered a new what's that modular laptop company that we like?
Framework.
I've just ordered a new 15, 16 inch Framework laptop for Becky here, because her laptop is won't run Windows 11, and so we kind of slid out of Windows 10 support. And it's not a hugely high-end spec by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still like £2,500 for a laptop, which seems really quite spendly compared to times gone by. I think it's got 2 terabytes of storage coming in it, and and 32 gigs of RAM, and both, as we've said before, both the RAM and the disk storage is getting quite expensive, and I don't see how this is going to come down. So yeah, I think this is going to be a problem. I really do feel for schools who have got this difficult budgeting problem. I don't know what the answer is, unfortunately. Sorry.
I don't think there is an answer. That's the thing. You talk to people like IDC and Gartner, I've spoken to both in recent weeks, and they say this problem's going to go well into 2027, if not longer, because those factories just haven't got capacity left. The factories that make the RAM and the NAND memory just of capacity. And even if they invest in new factories now, there's not a lot of evidence they are, that they're 2-3 years away by the time they even get online. So unless something extraordinary happens in the AI business, and they don't need all of that hardware, then it's going to be a pretty grim couple of years. How are you feeling over there, Nick?
I buy a lot of stuff secondhand, and I'm wondering what the knock-on effect's going to be there as well. Because obviously, if people are trying to make things last longer, then there's going to be less choice in the secondhand market, and anything that's a decent spec in the secondhand market is going to be going up in price as well. Even if it's just so you can rip it to shreds and pull out the useful bits to stick in a machine you've already got. I mean, it's interesting, John, that one of the things you mentioned was the end of Windows 10 support being impetus for moving onto new hardware. I'm wondering whether we're going to see a lot of people not bothering to go down your route because it's too expensive, and actually going down alternative routes like installing Linux on machines that are technically not reaching end of life hardware wise, but they are reaching end of life software wise.
Yeah, I mean, I could put Linux Mint onto her existing machine. I could use the excellent facilities that come with Linux Mint. Just as it's my Linux of choice, but there are many other Linuxes or Linui available, whatever the plural of Linux is, and they have got very good repartitioning tools, so you can put it onto a machine and repartition the disk, keeping your existing Windows in place, and that works extremely well. And yes, I could put her on there. I could then put LibreOffice on there, for example. And that sounds like an eminently sensible thing. The problem is we have some really quite complicated Excel models, and I would need to know and validate that those Excel models work just fine on LibreOffice. I'm sure they do, because LibreOffice has a long and honourable history of supporting BASIC and so forth in the macro languages and so forth. But it's one of those things where her laptop is now 5-6 years old because it's kind of pre-Windows 11 spec, and therefore it's likely to get into that curve point of becoming unreliable or failure points and so forth. And I'll put my hands up, and Lee will shout at me at this point. I'll put my hands up and say it's the path of least resistance to buy her a new laptop, and just stump up the cost for it rather than repurposing. Her existing laptop is not going to get thrown away. It's not going in the skip or anything. And yeah, it's probably going to make a good machine to put Linux Mint onto, just if only to kick around.
The other option there, which the people from FutureSource mentioned, is Chrome OS Flex. They say a lot of schools that are hitting the Windows 10 support deadline and now don't want to pay the extra for support are moving to Chrome OS Flex to try and get around that issue. So, I mean, Chromebooks are already huge in schools anyway. They're sort of 20-30% of the market there already, but that could well accelerate that effect. I'm sort of surprised Microsoft hasn't fully relented on support, but I guess at some point they have to start withdrawing.
Yeah, I mean, Running DAX
systems.
says, people putting Linux on old hardware that's starting to get unreliable is going to make Linux look bad to people. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The problem is it's still too difficult to get pre-installed Linux Mint on brand new hardware. This ought to be possible in 2026 from the main providers, but at least the framework laptop that I've bought for her, buying Windows is a clearly cost option, and you can like the default position, it comes with no OS, and you choose what you want to put onto it.
That would have probably been the most useful thing the monopolies people could have done to Microsoft, is to make the manufacturers can still supply Windows as they always do, but it has to be the cost of Windows has to be a line item on the invoice. That would definitely have improve matters. Anyway, we've got to move along because we've got a lot to talk through, and we're staying with Microsoft, Nick.
Yes, some good news. I think Microsoft's announced that it's going to start popping up alerts, which obviously might make some people's hearts sink. But in this case, I think they're actually really useful ones. They're going to be very similar to the ones that we see on our mobile phones. So when you go onto a website or you use an app for the first time and it asks for permission to use things like the camera or the microphone, we're already used to that, and that's going to be coming into Windows. This has been implemented as part of its Secure Future initiative, which it launched in 2023, following a breach of Outlook accounts by apparently a hacking group called Storm 0558. And part of the plan means that only properly signed apps and services and drivers are going to be allowed to run. It's going to be a phased rollout, as all the best rollouts are. And obviously that means we can see it, I would hope, being revived, or not revived. There's a word beginning with R that I cannot remember, but it's basically where things improve over time.
Refined.
So obviously,
Refined.
Thank you very much. Refined over time.
Thanks to Dario.
So,
Yes.
yeah,
Who
thanks,
needs AI?
Dario. So yeah, well, me clearly. So basically, I'm hoping that we're going to get plain English language or plain French, whichever version of Windows you're using, and I would imagine that will be refined over time. We're going to see these messages hopefully become very easily understandable, because if I'm granting access to my camera, I want to know that that's what it is actually asking. And one of the premises, if you're having a difficulty imagining why this might be useful, is, for example, you might install, say, a free video editor that, without your knowledge, also installs a browser extension. So if that browser extension then pops up an alert asking to use your camera, you know something hooky is going on, and you can investigate what it is, or just bin the whole idea to say no in the first instance, and it's not going to gain access to your camera. There's a couple of other things that it's announced at the same time. It's disabling all ActiveX controls in Microsoft 365 and Office 2024 Windows apps. It's updated Microsoft 365 security defaults to block access to various services via legacy authentication protocols, and it's announced plans to secure Entra ID sign-ins against script injection attacks, if that's relevant to your organization.
What do you make of this, Darian?
Yeah, so we are all old enough to remember Windows Vista and UAC. I was just checking because I was like, is it really 20 years ago that Vista came out? It's 19, so pretty close. And it was universally hated because it was perceived as something that got in your way when you were trying to, just trying to get things done. I think all four of us actually on this week's podcast also, we regularly use macOS alongside Windows. So we know, and I'm sure many people know, that Mac has had something like this for quite a few generations now. You get pop-ups saying, this app wants to access your camera, wants to access files in your downloads folder, wants to access files controlled by such and such an application. And I have to say, it does feel a little bit, it does remind me of the Vista days sometimes. I think it is on the whole, it's a good thing that the apps can't just have free reign over your system and do whatever they want. But I think it's very, very difficult. It's probably different for every person and for every use case as to what is the right level of alerting to keep a person safe without just annoying them to the extent that they, because I don't know if you can even turn it off on the Mac, but I have to admit, at this point, I am doing exactly what you're not supposed to do most of the time and going, oh, it's popped up, so I'm going to click OK, just get out of the way, so that the whole thing becomes pointless. I don't think, as I say, macOS has got that right. It will be interesting to see if Microsoft can get it right. Their previous form, which is indeed now obviously a generation ago, suggests that at that time they certainly could not.
I think the biggest issue with the Mac is that it periodically resets. So after about 3 months, you get another warning saying, Vivaldi wants to use your camera. And it's like, oh, really? Because you seem to go in phases where you get a hammering of alerts in the same month, obviously after you've set it up. So
I had wondered if they expire, if that tells you that the executable's been updated, but one way or another, maybe. Yes, it is the case that I also get, I already said this thing could do this thing.
Yeah. John, what do you make of it?
I mean, anything that stops people inadvertently clicking on the wrong thing and ending up in a very dark puddle has to be a good thing, because it's very easy to sit here in nerdland and say, oh, aren't they stupid for doing this? But the reality is that people do get confused. And you're quite right, Darian, that there is a significant element of I'll just click on the OK, it'll be fine. Oh, oops, no, it wasn't. The way Apple does it, I actually quite like because it's somewhat more restricted than Windows has been, and it's got I think the balance of a question asking and response requirement is, I think they've got it about right on Apple. I think Microsoft, or rather Windows, has been very permissive for a long time. It has been getting more locked down. That's a good thing. And one of the major changes here, obviously, is that happened with browsers a couple of years ago, when almost across all of the major browsers, they almost simultaneously moved to preventing any third party adding an extension into the browser. You actually had to explicitly say, yes, I want this enabled, rather than something being dropped into the browser and then just automatically working. And that was undoubtedly a good change, and I applaud that then, and I still do today. I mean, the way Apple sets things up, I'm not even sure what the defaults are anymore on Mac OS. Because under security, you allow applications from either App Store or App Store and known developers. So if it's a known developer, it will have been digitally signed with a developer key. You can install anything from anywhere on Mac OS. You just have to dig into the dialogues there in that user interface and say, yes, I really, really do want you to do this. Thank you. Please do add this. And a reminder that you can, on a Mac, you can install kernel extensions. You can actually boot into the security services that run before the OS loads and change the security settings in there, all the way down to load an entirely different OS onto here if you wanted to. So these things can be unlocked, and they are not trivial, and that's a good thing. I would like to see exactly where Microsoft goes with this, because I think this is a good thing. Also, it's going to be very important to see how Microsoft implements this for businesses that are running global policy. How can this be locked down or unlocked at a business level, or as was Active Directory policy level? Because again, this needs to be ratcheted in. And an awful lot of companies, of course, will be fully locked down anyway on their environment and won't allow you to install any third-party anything anywhere for any reason, because they want to work in that kind of a locked environment, which is entirely appropriate for them.
I think more interesting, but you just mentioned businesses there, John. I think what's the most interesting point here is what's going to happen with agentic AI. If you're allowing AI to run your computer, is this going to be the stop point we need to make sure it's not doing certain things we don't like, installing stuff we don't want, or authorizing, the camera turning on when you're not ready to be looked at?
Well, that's a lovely, perhaps inadvertent segue, Nick, to the next item, which is about AI. And this is Microsoft's AI chief, in fact, a chap called, he says, stalling for time. What is his name? Something Suleiman. I apologise, I've not got his Christian name in front of me. But he basically had an interview with the FT, I think it was about last week, saying that a whole number of jobs in white-collar industries are under threat in the next 18 months. And this is because, partly because of the AI developments, the agentic AI developments that Nick just mentioned, where AI effectively takes charge of your computer and does tasks on your behalf. So he was saying there's a whole range of industries where jobs are going to come under threat. Mentioned in particular the legal industry, lawyers, accounts, auditors, these kinds of jobs where they're doing relatively routine kinds of work may end up coming up under threat because of improvements in the AI models. That comes in the same week as Anthropic launched Claude Sonnet 4.6 earlier this week, and that promises significant improvements in that agentic experience where the AI effectively takes charge of your computer or can do things on your computer largely through the web browser. According to Anthropic, its latest model, so this launched in October 2024, Claude was the first of the mainstream AIs to have this ability where it can control your computer. Back in those days, in 2024, which seems a million miles away now, it scored 14.9% in the OS World benchmark, which is a benchmark that gets it to do lots of real-world tasks in the browser. They claim the latest model has got up to 72.5%, which makes it as good as a human level in the majority of tasks. To quote Anthropic, it says this model certainly still lags behind the most skilled humans at using computers, but the rate of progress is remarkable nonetheless. It means that the computer use is much more useful for a range of work tasks, and that substantially more capable models are within reach. So we are seeing a lot more of these agentic AIs having the ability to do relatively sophisticated tasks. I mean, I use it quite frequently in ChatGPT, and I'm always quite astonished by what it's capable of. Do we think this is very bad news for the jobs market? What do you think, Darren?
Well, I think it is bad news, certainly in the short term, because I do believe that there are a lot of decision makers out there. I went to an event at my old college last night, which included some of the big donors were there. So some big industrialists, some big people who have like big picture, commercial outlooks, and quite a lot of them wanted to talk about AI, and they wanted to, and a lot of them are very optimistic about it and what it can do, how it's going to transform the landscape, hopefully for the better by freeing up people to do more worthwhile, more rewarding jobs. But in the short term, yes, I think what that is kind of code for, perhaps, I don't think anyone was, I don't want to accuse anyone I met last night of this, but I think in practice, in a capitalist environment, that's going to manifest first of all as a great shedding of the what you might call the menial, the less skilled jobs, the things that people perceive can be handed over to agents, to AIs. However, I've been working very intensively with AI for about the past 6 months because I've been writing some books about it, and based on what I've been discovering, I've been also applying that to some commercial projects I've been involved in, and I have to say, when you there's a curve when you start to really work closely with AI, which kind of goes from let's see what this can do, oh my god, it's amazing what it can do, Jesus Christ, I had no idea it could do all this, wait a second, I can't trust it to do this, this or this, and the closer you get, the more you start to delegate kind of sizable actual, the actual sort of job that would make you go, I need to employ a person to do this. Kind of the more you run into its limitations, its subtle ones, not something that you would notice on day one, not something you might you'd necessarily be aware of if you were just looking at someone and saying, well, all this person does is data entry and cross-checking, and a computer can do that. But over time, as your project brief grows and evolves, characteristics of the AI, like its tendency to forget things or for context to get muddy, or its way to the way that if you don't say something explicitly, it will make a decision for you, and this stacks up and builds. It really does need a lot more kind of coddling and guiding and supervising than you might at first appear. And because I've been on this journey myself of starting out thinking AI really is going to completely transform the workplace. And now I think some coding departments, some developers have sort of said it has changed the job entirely, but it hasn't made developers redundant. It just means that now what they're doing is maintaining and assessing and speccing the AI-generated code rather than working from stuff they made themselves, which might well have been cleaner and more reliable to start with. So a big transformation is underway, but I don't think it's going to be the one that perhaps is being predicted by Mr. Suleiman.
Nick, what do you make of it?
Scary, isn't it? Poor old Fatima, the ballet dancer, whose next job could be in cyber, and she just didn't know it yet, is going to have to retrain again as a ballet dancer. She's going to have a more fulfilling job, as Darian says. But to be honest, where are those more fulfilling jobs going to be? If AI can do your insurance quote, and it can also do the insurance claim, and it can answer the phone for you, and it can also write a novel and do pictures, are we just going to sit on the beach all day? And if we are, who's going to pay for the cocktails? Because we're not going to be earning money to pay for those cocktails. I find it difficult to be optimistic in this scenario, if it's true, if it happens.
John's a little ray of sunshine on these topics, so come on, John, beam us with some optimism.
Um, I agree with everything that's been said from me learned gentlemen. I think there's going to be whole scale problems in a lot of industries where a lot of repetitive stuff, a lot of what you might call data munging type of tasks is going to be swept away. Um, however, a big however here. Look at the take up of Copilot for Office 365, and it's currently running at 3%. Now, we've talked about this before. There's a bunch of reasons why this is the case, and I'm sure that Microsoft is taking a very hard look at why that uptake is so bad. I suspect the $20 per seat per month is probably one of the big factors. And the problem with all of this is all of these processes are effectively untested and therefore untrustworthy. And so, yes, you can generate a legal brief using an LLM, ChatGPT kind of thing, and woe betide you?
Woe betide.
Them, that thing. Woe you if you submit it to the judge and they discover that it's actually full of hot air. And I think there's an awful lot of this stuff where people are diving in and not really thinking about the liabilities and the outcomes, and there's going to be a lot of burnt fingers on this. Also, I must confess, maybe I'm just being grumpy old John, which I am, very well known for. But I'm seeing more and more sort of quasi AI chatbot on websites for support and service and stuff. And they're just rubbish. They are just absolute rubbish. And you can tell they're rubbish because you can tell it's a bad AI chatbot. If they were really good, it would operate and work like a human being. You could change the question slightly and it would follow and understand what you were trying to do. And these things are just sort of like 4-year-olds on speed. And it's a really negative thing. And I really hope we don't end up in this in a world of sort of AI bots shouting at each other like toddlers, because that's kind of where we are at the moment. I also noticed it was interesting. Was it this week, last week, where the chap who was behind OpenClaw got sort of kind of fell out with was it not Perplexity? He fell out with the other big one.
OpenAI?
No, not OpenAI. And he's now joined OpenAI, the competitor, and taken it there. And people behind OpenAI saying this is all fabulous and great. But other people are having really, really bad experiences with OpenClaw. Yes, I accept it's very, very early, but the idea of handing over your life to something that's sort of bolted together scripts and LLM engines and stuff running, and you've got no idea what it's going to do. And do you really want to give it your health records? Do you really want to give it access to your credit card and so forth? And although the promise is fantastic, book me a holiday in Venice, somewhere that fits my diary in April, and book the hotels and the flights and everything. That sounds fantastic until you actually think through the risk elements attached to it. So I think there's a lot of noise from people who are diving into this. There's a lot of C-level assumptions that they can lay off lots of people and replace it with an LLM or two. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to regret rushing in quite so quickly.
I think the real benefit here is going to come from bespoke AI, not from generic chatbots. Yeah, I've been working with a company called Garfield AI, who are basically a sort of system for automating the small claims court process. So clever lawyer chap, Philip, worked out that lawyers don't really have time to do small claims court procedures. It's hugely expensive to employ a lawyer to chase something for a maximum of £5,000. Can the AI guide you through the process to fill out all the forms for you, submit the relevant documents to the court, and kickstart the process for you? But that's not done. I mean, it's done with LLM in the background, but they've also a hell of a lot of engineering to make the process right, to find those little flaws, to make sure it absolutely fits the requirements of the court. Because, like you said, any judge is going to throw out AI rubbish in 10 minutes, and it, from what I can see, it appears to be working very well. So that took a lot of engineering effort to get right in the first place. They didn't just throw an LLM at it and go, away you go. And I think once companies perhaps start getting bespoke engineers to, not bespoke engineers, but engineers to create bespoke AI projects that fit their own processes, I think then that automation really does kick off. And that, if there is a reason to have hope, I think that's still going to require very clever people to create those processes in the first place and make sure they're working properly. So
there's also an important point here, which is if you're a business and you decide you want to move to one of the big models and use that as the core of your new customer facing web interface, chatbot, etc., and more than just a simplistic Q&A kind of thing, are you really sure that in 2-3 years time when you have got into bed with this specific platform, that the pricing is going to be manageable, that they haven't doubled or trebled or quadrupled or 10 times the price? There's a huge risk element here for businesses, and that's why I think an awful lot of people are being very cautious. Now, you could argue with great reasonableness that it's very unlikely that Microsoft is going to walk away from Copilot as a platform, even though there are rumours of them scaling back some of the things that they're trying to do. But if you're going to start using Copilot in your business, it's probably likely it's going to be around in a few years' time. So that's, I would view as being a relatively low risk, and yet they're still at 3% take-up of Office 365 customers. But some unusual, maybe not top tier, top 5 provider of services, do you really want to build around something like that? I know that to me would be very concerning.
Okay, unless Darren and Nick have got anything else to add on this one.
Well, I was just thinking. I mean, I hear companies saying that local AI is like a big growth area. I don't know exactly how really big. I mean, actually training and your own models and running your own in-house LLMs, like that's got to be out of reach of most of SMBs, I would imagine. But the overall shape of kind of what's happening, it reminds me of something else. It's this idea that there's a new technology which could change the world, but actually, as the use cases become apparent, as we all just kind of dip our toes in it, it seems like its real future is actually in very focused and targeted and specific areas, and that makes perfect sense. I was just trying to work out. It reminded me of something. Maybe it was GPU computing, but I feel like we've seen this play out before, and it does. I'm inclined to agree with John. Obviously, I mean, if I were building a business now, I would not stake its future on OpenAI being existent and interested in maintaining my custom and not just shaking me down in the long term.
Okay, Nick. Well, we have to move on now, and apparently, John, we can start replacing our hi-fi cables with bananas.
Yeah, this is a story that's kind of been picked up and running around the internet in the last couple of weeks. It actually was a year or so ago. Basically, it's a fun test. I wouldn't say it was particularly scientific for reasons I'll come on to. But basically, on the website DIY Audio, which is a fun place to go and have a look, they basically wanted to see if the material used in audio interconnect. So you're basically your 1 to 2 volt line level analog interconnects, the stuff you connect your CD player to your amplifier with, that kind of cable, usually with phono plugs on the end. Whether the material used was important, because there's an awful lot of hi-fi nonsense and myth in there out in the world of the gullible, shall we say. And I say that as someone who immediately after this podcast is jumping in the car and driving down to Bristol for the Bristol Hi-Fi show for the next few days. So if you see me there at the Bristol Hi-Fi show, tap me on the shoulder and I will probably buy you a beer. But these people decided to sort of go a little bit over the top, shall we say. And so they decided to compare a copper cable, a length of your standard copper internet cable, with a banana, and also with mud. So they basically made a conductive tray of mud and stuffed interconnects into each end of a banana to see if it was conductive, and if it changed the sound. Did it sound more banana-y or more muddy? Well, strangely enough, no one could tell. They basically processed out some files from a CD and re-recorded them back in as FLAC files and WAV files, and you could then download them and basically blind test yourself to see if you could reliably tell which was which. And the people behind DIY Audio collated all of this together, and essentially it was all noise. Now, we could be quite nerdy about this and say, well, I don't expect a banana to do very much other than just act as a sort of an inline resistor. There isn't very much capacitance or inductance in a banana, at least not last time I tried, or a pot of mud. And it's actually the water that's doing the conduction, the salty water that's doing the conduction. Their methodology was fine for a piece of fun. I wouldn't call it massively scientific. There's no analysis done on something like an Audio Precision Analyzer. I'm just posting the URL of one of the units we have here into the Discord channel. But it was certainly a piece of fun, and I applaud them for doing this. Whether it busted any myths or not, I think is unlikely. But I think this kind of what shall we say, bursting of pompous positions is a very good thing. So I applaud them entirely.
I don't know what to ask. Whether you've got any comment on this, Darren or Nick? But...
well, I have to admit, I did once pay about £60 or something for a phono-to-phono cable to go with my new hi-fi, because I really wanted to believe that that they wouldn't sell these things if they didn't make a difference. Unfortunately, I am now older and more cynical and more worldly wise, and I'm well aware that although people do really feel in themselves that they are happy and they perceive, whatever they want to perceive when they are using what they believe to be the best hi-fi gear available, at the very least, we'll have to say there is a psychological component to that. And I would say the burden of proof is very much on the retailers and the manufacturers of audiophile gear to show that there is a measurable difference, or at least one which can be reliably evidenced in blind or double-blind tests, which you never ever see. That for me is the thing which I find very interesting. You go and buy any kind of hi-fi magazine, if indeed such things still exist, or you go on the big big name review websites, and double blind testing is almost nowhere to be seen. It's like there's almost a conspiracy of we all know that the magic will stop working if you look at it too closely. So I'm always personally I'm always rather pleased to see things like this that just do a little bit of irreverent bubble bursting.
The problem you've got there, of course, and I'm not going to nerd out on this, but the problem you've got there is that basically the capabilities of the measurement systems are so far removed from the way that the human ear-brain interface works as to be somewhat laughable. I've run listening tests, blind, double-blind, not blind, for over 40 years now, and yes, with the right prompting and psycho babble, you can get any result you want out of it. But I'm absolutely certain that there are things like RF pickup, mechanical coupling onto boards, and so on and so forth that can cause significant issues. That's not necessarily the quality of the copper in the cable. It's more like physical and electro issues. And I'm also absolutely certain that well-trained, experienced listeners working in a properly defined space can hear levels of difference that are astonishing compared to your proverbial person on the Clapham omnibus listening to a pair of earbuds on their phone. I'm not dissing that at all. I'm just saying is that in the right environment, the ear-brain interface is unbelievably good at resolving stuff, which is almost impossible to measure. And I say that with tens and tens of thousands of pounds worth of measuring equipment here. And now this is a topic for another time, rather than boring you all with it now. But nevertheless, I'm not saying that what was behind this was actually myth-busting in any particular way. I could nerd on about how they actually did the test, but it doesn't matter. But I thought it was a good piece of fun, and I applaud them for doing the bit of fun.
If you want to nerd on, the Discord chat is lit up with hi-fi cable talks. So pcpro.link/Discord if you want to catch up on that chat. Best of luck to you if you do. We're moving on to Nibs, and we're starting with you, Darian.
Yeah, I can't believe this. The PC Pro podcast, I think, has been running for nearly 20 years at this point. And I think this might be the first time we've had a story about Guernsey. And Nick is right there. He's literally sitting in the box next to me on my screen, and you're giving this story to me. But so it goes.
I didn't put it two and two together there, Darian, but away you go.
Yes, it's been reported by the Data Protection Authority on Guernsey that I don't think this isn't really a story specific to Guernsey. It generalises, but the report has come from Guernsey that data breaches on Guernsey in the past year were primarily attributable to not hacker attacks, not malware, but people sending emails to the wrong place. That's the number one thing you need to be aware of, apparently. I mean, it all kind of comes down to, we always say that the weak link in your security is always the bloody employees. But yeah, it's I haven't got I haven't got a proportion here, unfortunately. But given the size of Guernsey, I can tell you that 61 breaches in 1 year arising from emails being sent to the wrong people. I think that's, is that what, like 5 breaches per person? I don't know, but...
I think the population's about 65,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't really know. I'm not an expert.
That's more than the Isle of Man, I think, which from memory was like 35,000, something like that.
This is why people come to PC Pro for bananas,
like
Wi-Fi
this.
cables, and Guernsey populations. Moving on, Nick, password managers, please.
You don't want to know it's 63,950 people then.
Oh,
I do not want to know
this
that.
is
so close.
This is a story that you gave me because I think you didn't understand it, and I didn't understand much of it either. But basically, some very technical, big-brained people have proved that the claims that all password managers have, or most password managers have zero knowledge as far as the people that run them behind the scenes are concerned, might not be 100% true. But that's only if they chose to go in and they chose to use various vulnerabilities that some of these people have found. I'm not going to name any of the password managers because they did name a few, but some others haven't been named, which might also be vulnerable. So I think it's unfair to pick anybody out. But basically, it all revolves around, or some of it revolves around, shared vaults and the mechanism for sharing a key between the various people who share that vault and the point at which it could be compromised within the sharing process. And the other thing that they are vulnerable to, and this is the bit that made me really angry, is backwards compatibility. Quite often some password vaults are maintaining, well, they've made themselves a lot better, they've made themselves a lot secure, but not everyone wants to upgrade. So what they're doing is saying, well, we'll still maintain that less secure system over there, and that is a way in. And it really annoys me when people carry on using their hardware beyond the point where the operating system can be updated and remain secure. And it annoys me even more when people are expecting a password vault to keep their whole digital life safe, but they choose not to update it to the most secure version. So my levels of sympathy for those people are fairly low. But basically the story is, technically those people who run a password vault may be able to see what's in your password vault under certain circumstances.
Beautifully explained, Nick. Thank you. John, you've had a bit of fun online.
I have. I'm just going to wave this in front of the camera. This is my father's 1965 or so Castell slide rule. Well, I think Nick has just dropped something there. Oh, you have a slide rule tool. So this is my father's slide rule from when he was a engineer working at English Electric Valve Company. This here is the brand new one I bought from Castell in Germany about 9 years ago, just before they stopped selling them. They were basically selling out the remaining stock, and I believe it's now almost impossible to actually go and buy a Castell slide rule. But I'm just putting the link here into Discord. It's on GitHub, thingsabove.github.io. They have done a really gorgeous slide rule simulator and working tool, and you can give it equations and sums and things to do, and it then walks you through graphically with a slide rule on screen as to how it works and what happens and how you use this stuff. And I think it's a thing of delight. It is obviously not as much as a delight as having my father's slide rule here in my hand, or the the newer one that I bought. But if you can't have that, then this online tool is a wonderful distraction.
Thank you very much. And just finally, in Nibs, ChatGPT has started asking users if they wish to sync their contacts with the chatbot, and this is giving rise to some concerns about what exactly OpenAI is doing with that data and what its long-term motivations are. It appears that, well, certainly the online rumour mill is that this is OpenAI once again looking to get into the sort of social networking market. You may remember the video service Sora effectively turned into, or they tried to turn it into a social network. I think it's largely dying on its backside, to be honest. But it appears OpenAI may not have given up on their social networking ambitions, and that will make some very interesting debates with Mr. Musk and Mr. Zuckerberg, no doubt. But yeah, just something to keep an eye on if you're a ChatGPT user. By the way, that's completely optional, so you don't have to share your friends' contact details with the AI bot, should you wish not to, and I can't think of a good reason to do so right now. So, hot hardware time, and we're coming to you, Mr. Honeyball.
We are indeed, and hot hardware, I covered it in the back page of the magazine, but we're using it as hot hardware this time. Starlink Mini. This is the small portable version of the Starlink terminal. As you can see, it's about this big. It's a bit bigger than an A4. It's not terribly heavy. It will go in a backpack. That was kind of one of the design criteria of the Starlink Mini, is that you could, walk up the side of a mountain and then set this up. On the back, it's got a little fold-out foot on the back here, which you use to place it on the ground. But there is a barrel DC connector for input power, and there's also which is waterproof with a waterproof ring on it. And there's also an Ethernet port here as well that you can connect into. Now, how it comes as standard is it comes with a long cable. So as I'm reaching over here, a long cable which is basically a wall wart to the DC barrel, and that's what comes as standard. But you can optionally, what I did because it seemed like fun, you can actually get the DC barrel to USB-C cable, and then you can power this off a decent power bank. It takes about 15-18 watts, and so you can power this up the side of a mountain with no power whatsoever. And this is especially useful if you're outside of 4G, 5G range on your mobile phone. But what this does is it will fall over.
There it goes.
And it is drop proof. It is quite robust. But the point here is that you power it up, you've got it set up with the app, you connect to it. It is a router, and so it's a satellite internet receiver. It's a router, so it does network address translation, it does DHCP, and then it has built-in Wi-Fi, so it acts as a Wi-Fi hotspot. And you set all of that up on the app, and it's trivial. It takes a few minutes to set up. You point it somewhere randomly at the sky, and it will just sit there and hum to itself for about a minute or two while it says scanning for satellites. And then it will tell you how to reorientate it to get best view of the satellites moving overhead. Trivially easy to set up, trivial to use, and it then just works. I typically get about 150, 160 megabits a second down and something like 30, 40 megabits up. It's not as fast as your normal residential Starlink unit, but it's a smaller panel, so the phased array is smaller than the larger one at home. And the one at home, of course, usually has a motorized mount, so it can move itself around. This one you actually have to physically reposition, but it shows you in the app in real time, and it will then produce the overhead view of interruption. So how good its view of the sky is. So the throughput's good. It's about 150, 180 megabits down, 30 or so up. Latency is standard in the region of about 30 to 40 milliseconds. So it's perfectly usable, perfectly good for streaming over. Now, how much was this? The answer to me was it was free, not because of some press junket or whatever. I just had an email as a Starlink home user saying, would you like one? And I thought, well, that sounds nice. And then I looked at how much it was, and the answer is it was free. I don't know what deals they're doing still, but it certainly was free. And then there's the question of the monthly subscription for the data. Now, they do a plan which is basically idle. So essentially it's not in use mode, which is something like £4 a month. And that gives you enough to basically connect to the Starlink system and then enable a data plan depending upon how much data you want. Now, if you want 100 gig, it's £50 a month. If you want unlimited data, it's £96 a month. It's not the cheapest, and of course, compared to a 5G data sim, I've got 5G data sims on 3, albeit on a business rate on 10 of them, and it's about £8 a month for unlimited data. So this is a lot pricier than a data sim. I get that, but you can use this effectively almost anywhere on the planet, and you're not reliant upon being within range of a 4G, 5G network. We did use it for one of our food events just before Christmas, where the location, which was a big country house up north of Peterborough, and the Wi-Fi was broken and it was so remote there was no 4G, 5G coverage, and within, I sort of did a Thunderbirds and turned up with it, and within 5 minutes of arriving, we had a full working internet connection from scratch, and this is amazingly good stuff. It's not for everybody. What I would say about the roam is you can take this to over 150 countries around the world. So if you're going off backpacking around the world or on a big trip, you can take this with you because it will run off a USB power bank. Wherever you are, you can get this to work if you have got some power to feed it with, and you can just go off through France, Germany, whatever. And at that point, it's not quite so bad considering some of the costs out there for 4G, 5G roaming. The problem, of course, is 4G, 5G roaming will work within your hotel room, and this won't. You've got to get this outside, so you've got to kind of keep an eye on it. But there are so many uses of this where it's entirely appropriate, and many where it's not. But if you do actually want a tool like this, this is absolutely gobsmackingly good.
Well, you mentioned that I wrote a feature in PC Pro quite recently called Wi-Fi War Zones, where we talked to people who were doing Wi-Fi in weird places, and one of those was a guy who organises Wi-Fi for events, so like the Pride display in Brighton's Preston Park, and they use Starlink Minis all the time, just as almost as a backup in some situations, but sometimes as the primary Wi-Fi point if there's no fibre connection there. Gentlemen, any questions?
Yeah, I mean, you said it's backpackable, John.
Yep.
It's still a fairly chunky device. Obviously, it's a lot smaller than the home device. Why is
Sure.
it still that size? Because my phone does an awful lot of, it can chuck data backwards and forwards nice and quick. I realise this is not going to a cell tower, it's going an awful lot further.
Yep.
Is that the only thing that accounts for the size of it? Because it still seems
it
like
needs to be a
something I
phased
wouldn't
array,
really want.
which it's a steerable, electrically steerable phased array, so it creates a transmit-receive beam that in real time tracks the satellites going overhead. You need to have a minimum size of that, otherwise your noise floor comes up too high. And remember, the signal level from a satellite to ground is pretty trivial. Actually, one small piece of news: a couple of days ago, was it O2 Telefonica got their license to do full Starlink to cell phone connections in the UK. That all got signed off, so they will soon be able to do direct to cell phone. They're probably going to keep it to messaging and sort of lower level of data rather than video streaming. But this is moving in the right direction. I don't think you're going to make it much smaller than this, to be honest, Nick. And yes, it will go in a backpack. It's not the smallest of thing. I do get that, and it's not as small as your phone, but it's an entirely different technology, and it will work in places where your phone simply won't work.
Darian, anything to add?
No, no. I was just kind of looking at the history of this whole thing, which is quite interesting, but probably not really germane to the current discussion.
I also do have to add here, my enthusiasm for this is despite the owner rather than because of.
You just. I was just about to address this. I'd say the most biggest point of contention amongst the Discord chat is the fact that it's owned and controlled by Mr. Musk.
Well, me too. This is kind of partly why I was looking it up. I was sort of seeing, what it would be quite nice to think that maybe he just stepped in and bought the idea wholesale off someone else, but apparently not. No, this was this is something that he I think he can legitimately get quite a lot of credit for spearheading and funding and seeing from a nascent idea through to very effective realization.
Well, the good news is there's a competitor going up very shortly, and that's Amazon. So, they're lovely chaps. Can't see anything possibly wrong with that. Okay, so it is vote time. If you're listening live on Discord, the wonderful Running Dak has already got the poll going, so you might have to scoot a little bit up the chat stream, but issue your vote online if you're joining us live. Nicholas, let's start with you.
Oh, it's not for me. It's a cool bit of kit. I really love that John's enthusiastic about it, and I really like that he found a good use for it somewhere as benign as Peterborough rather than just up halfway up a mountain somewhere.
Kilimanjaro,
So,
yes.
if this is voting time, then technically yes, it is hot hardware. But as I say, almost every single time I'm on this podcast, it's not for me.
Darian?
Yeah, I think the hardware and the service and all of it is undeniably hot. I mean, it is. I completely understand John's enthusiasm for it, and it's not just a kind of a gimmicky thing. It seems to be properly built, properly spec'd, designed by real engineers who know what's needed and what works. Yes, so we're voting on the hardware, not the company, not the provenance. Then I'd have to say yes. But if I needed a remote access kind of internet solution for myself, I would try hard to find an alternative before resorting to this one.
What that guy said, I could not agree more with what Darren just said. It's only the owner that puts me off this particular kit. John?
I think it's hotter than hot because of the technology and the solution and what it's done. We'll ignore Elon for the moment. The thought of being able to have something this small, either on the back seat of the car or in a motorbike pannier, and go anywhere I want to and have a high-speed internet connection and know it's going to work. 20 years ago, I would have said, you're spouting nonsense. This is never going to happen. This is the stuff of Star Trek. But it is here today. It works, and that I think is amazing achievement for the engineers behind this.
Okay, well, it's a qualified hit on the Discord channel as well. 65% saying yes, 35% saying no. I think we're hot on the hardware in the room at least, if not the ownership. So that is a pretty convincing win for Starlink Mini. We'll be back again this time next week. Until then, have a good week, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.
Bye.
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 Cool. All right. Thanks, everyone. Any last words before I end the feed?
Nope, all good. Thanks, chaps.
John's got places to be.
I've got to get on the
Enjoy Bristol.
M6.
You better take your fancy Wi-Fi with you.
Am I going M6? Yes, I'm going M6, M42. Oh, I don't know where the hell am I going. Whatever Waze says is where I'm going to go.
Yeah, don't tell people, or they'll intercept you. Yeah.
Oh, that'll be fun. Might buy me a coffee.
Bye for now.
See you, buddy. Bye.